And for those of you who just tuned in, I am ready to go. I got my shirt, and this is it.
Beatles. Let it be, Dad. Just let it be.
Oh, well, I saw her standing there, and I decided I wanted to hold her hand. So let's just move on. Let's move on. All right.
All right. Five steps to use your welcome ministry to increase your attendance 20%. And this is for everyone, but especially even if you don't have one. So let's get started.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it is even if you don't have one, you can get one. If you have one, you can improvement. Hey, Danny, before I go to the first point, I just want to ask you this. You work with a lot of churches on welcome ministry. I know that you do that in a church, but you work with a lot of churches there. Tell me, are you seeing more churches that are saying we don't have a welcome ministry? Are they coming to you with an existing welcome ministry and saying improve it? Can you tell at this point?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see most is churches that are asking questions of what it should actually look like. Either they have inherited an anemic ministry where there's nobody that's really in charge, but they know that they want to get a little bit more intentional with it. Or it's just always kind of been everybody's job. And now they've realized that everybody's job is nobody's job. And so they are trying to build some structure along with that. But the good thing, the encouraging thing is they're asking the right questions. And I hope that that's what this webinar will be able to answer some of those today.
It will. Indeed. And for those of you who did not see that, our team has put upwardministry.org/church answers in the sticky notes. And we just wanted you to know about that. I did a webinar for Upward this week. I love being with them. All right. Why do
your team? And I'll just encourage everyone, go ahead and click that link and just open it up in another tab and have that there. Obviously, you tuning into this content right now, but go ahead and click the link so that you don't miss it. And you should reach out to Upward.
Yeah, I really encourage you just to make an appointment to talk to them. There's no commitment to talk to them. It's blowing up in a good way. It's really doing great reaching people. And once you start reaching them, you have to start welcoming them into your church. And that's what we want to talk about. Why do many churches don't have a welcome ministry? Let's look at this. It's not considered a priority. Oh, we got too many other things going on. Bad move. They forget Jerusalem. The missions is, yes, international missions. It's overseas missions. It's missions that are not in your community, but it's also those who are there. Acts 1:8 does begin with Jerusalem. Another thing, and I think this webinar will help a lot, is they don't know how. They don't know how to have a welcome ministry, especially an effective ministry. A welcome ministry for some churches is just the thing the pastor's supposed to do. Pastor's just that leader of the church, that preacher, that person is the one that's out there shaking hands, telling everybody welcome. We pay our pastor to do that. I hate those words. Sometimes I just think it's handing out bulletins. I mean, I was in a church not too long ago, and it was like 4 men lined up at the door. They all looked constipated. They had this face on them that was just taut with waiting for something to release. And they handed out a bulletin. And they said, hey, and that was it. Sam, did I just bother you?
No. I just want to ask Danny, when you hear taught waiting on something to release, I think is what my dad just said. Like, do you have an image in your mind right now?
Oh, I think I have multiple images that are going on right now. None of them are edifying.
Well, I think that handing out bulletins is a welcome ministry. Welcome. So you've probably been in churches that many churches think, well, we're the friendliest church in town. Yeah, you are among yourselves. Many churches have holy huddles and coolish cliques, and they think, okay, we love each other so much, so we're friendly. We're going to share with you. We're not trying to be condescending, but we're going to share with you. In many churches, it just is not so. If not most churches, they think a welcome ministry is going to cost too much. A welcome ministry doesn't have to cost hardly anything. It's one of the easy things that you can do in your church. They think, and Danny, I bet you get this because you serve in a big church. You serve in a mega church, but you also serve pastors of smaller churches too. And so you probably hear that, oh, this good type of welcome ministry is something that just the big churches can do. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Yes.
Well,
and let me camp on this point for 1 second. And I've made this point before, but I'm just for those who may not have heard it. In many ways, smaller churches have higher expectations of hospitality. You know, you walk into, I love going to Tropicana Field. It's in a bit of disarray right now, but I love baseball games.
There's a big hole in the top. I just thought I'd let you know.
It's an outdoor park right now. They need to fix that. We won't get into that. That's a whole nother webinar. But, when I go to Tropicana Field to watch the Tampa Bay Rays play, I expect a level of anonymity. There's 15, 20,000 people there. So I don't, I expect efficiency and I expect some politeness, but I'm not expecting high levels of hospitality. Now, if I go to a mom and pop restaurant, local spot here in town, I do expect somebody to say something. So, the large churches, this may sound unfair, but in some ways it is, but it's true. You walk into a larger church, you kind of have a lower level of expectations with hospitality. You go to a smaller church and nobody says anything, it's really strange. It's just awkward. So I would challenge all of you who are really at any size church that hospitality is important. But if you're at a smaller mid-sized church, it is extraordinarily important and often the most underutilized spiritual gift in the church.
Well, I think we were a little bit redundant here. It's another thing for the pastor to do, or similar to that, they think it's the pastor's job. So what a welcome ministry is not just handing out bulletins with the constipated few. It is much more than handing out bulletins. It's not just having a welcome time during the service. Danny, you and I are both introverts. The welcome time about kills us, does it not?
It's absolutely one of the worst. I know that there are churches on the webinar that do this. Sometimes it slips past me and we do this, but kill it with fire. Just get rid of it as fast as you possibly can.
I will defend all the extroverts. I like it. But we did. So we had a business meeting at my church, Danny, where we discussed whether or not to do the greeting time. And this was a while back. You're like, are you really discussing that at a business meeting? We did. And so somebody basically called the question, and the vote to kill it was like 80-90% in favor and only 10-20% against killing it. Yes. So I lost that battle in my own church.
I am so glad you did. And that one time that I'm a member of Sam's church as well as Jess's church, there's probably something unethical, illegal, or anti-ecclesiological about that, but I'm a member of both churches. And Sam had prepped the congregation to hug me when I came in. And even afterwards, it was one of the greatest horror stories of my life. People were coming up to me, actually touching me, embracing me, saying things to me. Oh, Sam, you lost a good portion. You lost a good portion inheritance of that. Having a receiving line, now that's going up and shaking the pastor's hand, telling the pastor it was a great sermon, even though it wasn't. That's not the welcome ministry. Signage in itself is important, but that in itself is not the welcome ministry. And I talked about the glorified handshake, but let me tell you about Amy at the church at Spring Hill. Amy is the head of our welcome ministry. She personifies joy. She exudes welcome. She's always making sure that the people who serve on the welcome committee are not in a holy huddle talking to one another. She has a way of breaking us up. And Amy represents, I think, what you can have in your church and what you're going to hear about this before it's all over. So I want to give a shout out to Amy and what she is doing in the church. Man, much, much more. I serve, you know this, Danny, I serve my son. This is the other son pastor, not the one who embarrassed me, but the other son pastor. Well, he embarrasses me too, but the other son pastor will not let me serve in any leadership position in the church. But he said I could work under the authority of Amy, and she put me in the parking lot. So Cam and I are the two parking lot greeters now. And I get to wear my vest. I get those wands that you wave. And man, it is so neat. I chew on one and I wave the other one. It's really neat. That's what a welcome ministry That is what a welcome ministry is not. A glorified handshake committee. What else? Greeting at the door. We've already gone over that. What else? Having a receiving line. No, only for first-time guests. Talk about that. Talk about that, Danny. The welcome ministry is for whom?
The welcome ministry is for everybody. We actually, in our vernacular here, we talk about the fact that everybody is a guest. If you show up on the weekend, if you're the lead pastor, or this is truly your first time through the doors, we want to create the kind of culture where you feel like we prepared for you, knew you were coming, couldn't wait for you to come back, and we have a plan for you while you're here. We don't use the V word. We do not call them visitors, because visitors are people that you didn't know that they were coming, and you're kind of wondering when they're going to go away. But we have guests, and then we have that special category of first-time guests. But we believe that a great guest services team will really raise the culture, raise the water level, and all the boats in the harbor are going to rise if we do a good job of welcoming those first-time guests, but also creating that hospitable environment for everybody.
Outstanding. Sam, let's do a poll. Lead us through it.
Yeah, before we get to step one, which we're going to talk about a secret guest here in just a moment, I'm really curious what our audience has to say. So go to the polls and tell us how you would describe your church's welcome ministry. We've got some options there.
Right column. The polls are.
So go over there, and we'll just do this for a few seconds. Let everyone have a chance to find it and give us an answer. How would you describe your church's welcome ministry? So we don't have one. Does more harm than good. There's a few of you answering that. So, better than most, and outstanding. There's a few of you answering that one too. And we're seeing these. I love watching the percentages come in live. That a lot of our research projects, our national research projects that we do, the way that they're done now, you get to see live results as they come in. So this is always so much fun. Obviously, this is not a representative sample, all of you who are on this webinar, but as many of you as here from all over the nation
and world,
it would be close. I can't say it's scientific, but it would be fairly close. So I'm going to end the poll in just a couple of seconds. So 3, 2, 1. All right, Dr. Rayner.
Yes, Dr. Rayner.
We'll put the results in the comments section too. I know not all of you can see them. We'll do that here in a moment. But Dad, walk us through these. This is fascinating.
Somewhat of a bell curve, but not exactly. It's a skewed bell curve, if that's actually a phrase. I don't know if it is. So 16% of you said we don't have a welcome ministry. 3% says it does more harm than good. We're glad you're here. 40% said it's so. So thus far, almost 6 out of 10 you either don't have a welcome ministry or it does more harm than good. This number, 36% say it's better than most. 40% said it's so. 36% said it's better than most. And 3% of you say it's outstanding. Now, quite frankly, I'm glad you're all here, because you all can get something from this. Even those of you who say it's outstanding, I think you're going to learn how to make it more outstanding. Better than most, better than many. So, up to great. And those of you who are concerned about the quality of your guest ministry or your welcome ministry right now, I think this is going to help a lot. So not quite a bell curve, but close enough.
Yeah. Definitely good results. Thanks for letting us know and being part of the poll. All right. So what steps can we take? We've laid the groundwork now, Dad, and we've kind of put a foundation in, and we're talking about a secret guest. So step one is what we often do in our consultations. Walk me through this.
Okay, a secret guest is someone who has never been to your church. That's number one. Number two, no one knows the secret guest. You've got to try to find somebody that's outside the church. Number three, giving good instructions on what to do when he or she is in the church. Number four, has some type of form that they respond thoroughly on so they can talk about their experience, usually writing it down after the services instead of during the services, but they respond thoroughly. You give them a gift, give them a $25 gift card to a coffee shop or something of that nature to thank them for it. And then you review the findings with the church staff. We're going to talk about the secret guest ministry form. Danny, I know that you're primarily about the welcome ministry, so I have no idea what your answer to this is. So have you ever done secret guests? Do you utilize them in any way?
I have both been a secret guest and I have had secret guests, and I think the biggest point of this is they've never been to the church and nobody knows who they are. I think that it is what you want is somebody's initial impression of what they feel, because that's exactly what your regular guests are judging you on. And so you want somebody who's able to come in and just give you their knee-jerk impressions. They don't have to be in ministry. They don't have to be a consultant necessarily. They just have to be somebody that's never been to your church. And so whether that's a believer who goes to another church down the road, or an unchurched friend that you have a relationship with, that you can say, hey, I'll take you to lunch afterwards. If you'll just come, pretend you don't know me, and give me your first impressions after it's all over with.
You brought up a good point. The last time I was a pastor, which was BCE or BC, whichever area you want to use. The last time I was a pastor, we actually did one every 6 months, and one period would be with a believer in another church who's active, so that person could evaluate it from the perspective of someone who knows church life, and then the next time someone who'd never been to church. So yeah, we would alternate the two. So I like the fact that you did that. Sam?
Yeah, I think a lot of people know this concept and are familiar with kind of secret guest ministries and secret guest opportunities. They've just never done it. Like he's like, oh yeah, I know about that. Well, I would encourage everyone who's on this webinar, actually follow through and do this. Go find somebody. Like you said, Dad may offer them a gift or something and just say, hey, I just want your initial feedback. I want what you feel. I like what you said there, Danny, because these are people who are having a first impression that likely others are as well. So if you have signage problems, if you have navigation problems, if you people don't know what door to come into, these all sound like really basic things, but they're extraordinarily important, because what somebody feels in that first moment is often what they carry with them in terms of a perception of your church. So you need to understand what that first impression is. And the only way that you're going to know what the first impression is to ask. The person that's been coming 10 or 12 weeks may have some good feedback, but they've likely already settled into a pattern. So by the time they get to your membership class, their perspective is already kind of off. They've already kind of bought into your church. What you want is somebody who has zero interaction, zero kind of understanding of who you are and your campus. So I think these first impression or secret guest surveys are great. I like asking people to write out a narrative. That may be a little much, and you might not find somebody who wants to do that, but man, write out 2 or 3 pages of just all the stuff that you felt, all the things that you saw. And it's amazing when you ask them, like, what did you just see? Well, like the things that they see that you don't see is unreal. So I think step 1 is a good step. Most people know this concept, they just don't do it. So all of you who are listening, if you've never done a secret guest, now is the time. It's really easy, and it can be a gospel opportunity. I just met a neighbor this morning. I was out on a run, a new neighbor that I did not know before. And I asked them to do just this. They're churched people, but I said, well, they said, well, we've been thinking about, we driving way out east to go to church. Here it's quite a drive, 45 minutes an hour. And they said, we probably need to find a church more local. And I said, well, if you come to my church, I'd love for you to give me your first impressions. And kind of did an informal sort of secret guest thing. Now they're believers and they are my neighbors, but man, I would love their perspective. Mm-hmm. It can be just as simple as asking a neighbor, or maybe your neighbor's unchurched or not a believer, even better. And it could become a gospel opportunity. So this could not only be something that you benefit from, you may have the opportunity to share the gospel with someone.
Mm-hmm. By the way, if I could just interject, and if we reverse engineer that, if you have somebody that you are building a relationship with, you're sharing the gospel with, You have no intention of them being a secret guest, but you invite them to your church and they show up. Automatically, all of these 6 bullet points that we just went through, or at least these first few, those are going to come vitally important to you because your reputation is on the line. Because you've said, I want you to come to my church. It's a great church. And they show up and nobody greets them, or they stand people up in the service and everybody greets them, or whatever it is. And suddenly you are cringing on their behalf because you are seeing everything that you have not noticed for the last 15 years in your church. So go ahead and be proactive with it and bring somebody in to help improve that before it's really for all the marbles.
Yeah, we had a consultant that went to a church and they all stood up while the guests sat down. That's probably as bad as you can get, because
been there. Yep.
The guest all of a sudden has the Major Heine view of everybody, and that's the only view that they have during the welcome time. Oh well, I could make the introvert in me do this whole thing. I'm not going to do that. Step 2 to an excellent welcome ministry. I'm going to go through this quickly, but I'm not going through it quickly because it's unimportant. I want to remind you how important prayer is. I want to remind you that many of these people who are coming are not Christians. I want to remind you that even if they are Christians, many are coming with discomfort, with problems, with issues. We need to be praying for those who aren't there and those who will be there. And once they are there, make prayer the priority. Here's some examples. If you're starting a new ministry, pray. If you're starting over, pray. Have a huddle time before each service with those who are going to participate in the welcome ministry and pray. Carry a prayer journal with you. Mine's digital, but I carry it with me. It's called Echo. And if there's a prayer request I want to put down, I put it in my Echo app. And somebody says, this is my prayer request, and you can pray for them on the spot, even if they are a guest, or you can put it in there. And then the worship service greeter as well. Now, what does that mean? Pray as someone approaches the church in you. I got ahead of myself. So if someone is approaching you and you're about to pass them, pray that God will give you an opportunity to speak to them. I just want you to hear how important prayer is. My brevity on it has nothing to do with the level of importance of it. Every welcome ministry should be a praying ministry. Now, I was about to get ahead of myself. Step 3, excellent welcome ministry. 5 key welcome leaders. And I'm going to come back to Danny and say, who have we left out, if any? I've got 5 here. You got the overall leader, someone, you got to have a person who is the point person. In our church, it is Amy. And Amy is one of the kindest, sweetest ladies you'll ever know, but she does not mess around when it comes to this ministry. And she won't let you mess around in this ministry too. I am an outside greeter or a parking greeter. And here's one thing I do. I look to see where cars are parking, and I'm running around saying, oh, there's some parking spots up here. We have signage, but that's not often looked at. And so as an outside greeter, it may not be someone in the parking lot. It may be someone right outside the door, but there. Front entry greeter, that's always a popular one, especially if you got bullets that stand out and you can look down and be grumpy. But front entry greeter, foyer greeter, once they get into the church, not just you greet them at the door, you greet them in the parking lot, now you're done. No, interact with them. That's one thing Amy is doing. She's pointing to people. Say, go. She'll introduce you to people. One of the reasons I did the outside ministry is because I got tired of her telling me to meet someone. I went out there and did it on my own without having to meet people that she introduced me to. And then the worship service, the foyer greeter and the worship service greeter. What's the worship service greeter? That's someone who's looking around to see us once that member has gotten in. Are they, or he, or she, are they still being welcomed? Are they sitting by themselves, feeling uncomfortable? That's what a worship service greeter should do, be looking around to see how we make guests feel more welcome. What am I leaving out, Danny?
Yeah, I think those are 5 good ones. And depending on the size of your congregation and the footprint of your building, you could have sub levels on all of those. You mentioned outside greeter can be somebody on the sidewalk or somebody in the parking lot. But I want to give, when we're thinking about who's on the team and where we place them on the team, I want to give a principle and I want to give a practical tip. The principle is that we want to always think outside in. Most churches, when they think about this idea of welcome ministry hospitality, they think inside out. They think as long as we have the auditorium covered with our 17 ushers in matching suits, and they're engraved, embossed name tags, we've covered it. The problem is your guests don't see your auditorium first. They see your parking lot first. They see your sidewalk first. They see your outside doors first. And by the time they get to the staged and ready people, they've already made the decision, if all the statistics that we see are correct, on whether or not they're ever going to come back. And so we want to think outside in. I don't want to say that outside greeters are more important than inside greeters, but they are really, really important. There's probably a 51-49 split there. The practical thing is, under the outside greeter, I would give one of those sub-points would be that you want to have, in addition to a parking team, sidewalk team, whatever, you want to have a first-time guest team that is outside, not buried 40 feet inside the lobby at a welcome center, but you want to have, in our context, we have first-time guest tents that are obnoxiously in the way. You have to walk around them to get into the building. On all four sides, it says, first time, stop here. And it is a very obvious on-ramp for people. We said we want to treat everybody like a guest, but we recognize that there are first-time guests, and that is a great way for them to have a non-threatening spot to stop before they go in, so that somebody is there to help broker that experience for them and walk with them. They're not walking into a sea of people. They're going up to one person who is there to help them that morning.
Hey, Danny, I got word from I wasn't there, but I got word from a pastor of a church running about 90 in attendance, that they had gotten a tent. That's first time guests here. This isn't this big church stuff only. That's right. This is all churches. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Let's go to step 4. Excellent welcome ministry training, onboarding training. What do you do? We do updates every quarter with our welcome team. We're going to talk to Danny about this because he leads it. A couple of good books out there. One is, I was trying to think of the author. Tom Rainer wrote a book called Becoming a Welcoming Church. And almost simultaneous with that, Danny released a book called People of the Mission, How Churches Can Welcome Guests Without Compromising the Gospel. We come at it from different perspectives, but it's all the same. It's very similar. I would get both books and provide them for your welcome team. So this could be part of the training. What do y'all do with training, Danny?
Yeah, the onboarding is huge for us because we don't want a volunteer on our guest services team to fill in the blanks on their own. We want to train them on what we want them to do. We want to help them understand what our ministry is not, as we talked about a little bit earlier. And we're really giving them a lot of the philosophy, the why behind the what. We don't really care. If in their first couple of weeks on the team, they don't understand exactly how many parking cones per square foot go out into the parking lot, or what shade of green our parking vests are going to be, or whatever. We want to make sure that they understand why they are doing all of those things. The philosophy behind it is more important than the actual task that they do, because if they can figure out the why, or if they know the why, they'll figure out the what about 95% of the time. We don't have to fill in all of those blanks for them. And so we offer that onboarding training just about every month here for somebody who is just curious about serving on the team and wants to know more. We have that time set aside and available for them. If nobody signs up for it, not a big deal, but we want to make sure that we are ready with that.
I forgot to mention one thing, Danny, and I'm sure you do this at times at your church. We have not had a thank you type of presentation, meal, celebration for our welcome ministry. And so under the authority of Amy, I asked her if we could move in that direction, and we are. And we're going to start having those probably once a year. We'll have the quarterly updates, but then one of those times is going to be just thank you. And that's vitally important. Let's go.
You need to show hospitality to the people in the hospitality ministry.
There you go.
Don't miss that. How do you build the right culture? Well, you start it with the people who stepped up and said, hey, I will help. If you're not hospitable to those who are your hosts, Well, that's going to trickle down into your church. And, I've seen some of the comments, and you guys are offering some really good stuff. And there's some good questions. We'll get to those here in a moment. So just some basic things like, smile more. Don't point, walk. That's what we tell our people. You should never point, over there. No, down that hall. No, walk with them. You should never be pointing in church unless you're pointing to a bathroom, and then you don't need to walk in with them. That's a little, you can point to the bathrooms. That one's okay. But it is very basic stuff that people often miss. A handshake, a smile, walking with someone, greeting them and telling them that you're glad they're there. Danny?
Yeah. Sam, to your previous point, before you got to the point about don't point, there's a very real thing that we've got to be able to show our volunteers the kind of behavior that we expect from them. And so when we don't train them, or when we forget that we had set up a time to train them, or when we bring them in to train them and we're not really prepared and we're 5 minutes later than they are, that says something to them about our level of quality and our expectations that we have. And so we want to make those training events an actual event. We want to make it something that they are really glad that they showed up for, they get a lot out of, and it didn't feel like a waste of time.
So one thing that we do, and this is just an idea, and then we'll get on to step 5, is we have quarterly business meetings, and we attach our training to the quarterly business meetings. So it does a couple things. We do training at, I think it's 4:30. We offer a meal. So everyone comes and they get a meal. These are all of our volunteers. These are all of our leaders. And then we offer them an hour-long training session in their respective ministries. First Impressions is one of them. And then from that, they go to the business meeting, which is at 6:00. Now, I realize that may not be for everyone, and not every church has business meetings and things like that. But my point is 4 times a year at West Bradenton, we are showing hospitality to our volunteers within the context of training. And I think that's extraordinarily important. Your training should contain hospitality to your volunteers. If not, you're not going to have the right culture.
So well said. Hey, let's get to step 5. We've got a few other things we want to share with you. The right leadership, the champion. When we refer to the champion, we're referring to the person who is the overall responsible person for this ministry. I think Danny said this earlier. If everybody's responsible, no one's responsible. If everybody's in charge, no one's in charge. It has to be a champion. Don't put it on the pastor. Pastor has plenty of things that are already on the plate. This is something that should be taken away from the pastor. The pastor can articulate the importance of the ministry, can articulate a vision. So you don't have a leader. What do? You pray for the right leader. We're going to talk to you about giving you a staff person, and you may not have someone that you would know who could be that staff person. And I just used air quotes that nobody saw. But pray for someone to lead this if you don't already have a leader. And emphasize again how important that leader is, because that leader is going to set the tone, going, as Sam said, set the example, and it is going to be critically important to have the leader. Now, what we want to do, some of you have already heard about this. We have this ministry called My Church Staff, and basically what we do is we provide you everything you need to have someone in your church to have this role. This role is head of the welcome ministry, of the first impression ministry, of the hospitality ministry. We provide that. And on the surface, it is so incredibly affordable at $100 a month, but you can stop it at any time if you find out you don't